Hello, and welcome. Welcome to A Pair of Trainers. This is a show where we have got two LinkedIn Learning instructors. I'm one of them, and we are going to discuss a course. Now, this is very... This is a really interesting thing that LinkedIn Learning have done. This short series that we're doing is all because LinkedIn Learning did some research to find out which courses had been most popular with successful job applicants in 2020. And one of the courses was a cert prep course. So preparation for doing a certification in becoming a Scrum Master. So we're going to be talking to Kelley O'Connell about that because her course has just been going great guns. So let me tell you a little bit about the course. In fact, let me not tell you a bit about the course. Let me tell you a bit about Kelley. Kelley's been technical project and program manager for more than 25 years, which means that when you see her, clearly she started when she was 6 then, because she doesn't look old enough to have been doing that for 25 years. She's now an independent coach and trainer. She's got 10 LinkedIn Learning courses, and her 11th LinkedIn Learning course is about to be filmed in the next couple of weeks from home, where it's just suddenly a whole lot of equipment turns up on Kelley's doorstep. She has to set it up and she has to film the course herself from home. So it's going to be an interesting experience because I'm just about to start doing that myself using my own equipment here. So the other thing is that it's not just me and Kelley, it's you that is important here because we want your questions. So please, the first question for you as you're watching this is, hey, where are you watching from? I'm in London. Kelley is over in the States in Chicago. Where are you? Where are you watching from? Please let us know in the comments. That'd be great. And if you've got any questions throughout any of this, please let us know. We really want to hear from you. Want to know what you want to know, or if you've got anything that you agree with or disagree with, please just get to work in the comments. Right. I've told you about Kelley. It's now time to say hello. So, hi, Kelley. Welcome to the show.
Dave, it's great to see you. It's great to see you.
Now, we have obviously been going through different times in the last year. And
Definitely.
As people who are freelancers and people who work with teams, it has all been it's taken a little bit of adjusting for a lot of people. And hopefully most companies have now got into the swing of it. But from your point of view, with all project management and doing Agile and Scrum, have there been big changes? And if so, what have been the big changes with remote working?
Absolutely. There have been so many changes, and people really have had to adjust how they work, how they interact, how they communicate. We have known for years, like since the email revolution of the mid-90s, that email is not the best form of communication. You miss out on a lot of the nonverbals, and you miss out on consensus. You can really lose out on those pieces. So successful people have really been shifting to this type of video chat. They've been switching to online collaboration spaces with video that they can talk, they can see all those nonverbals. Where we used to in project management sort of do what we would call a sneaker net, where you walk around from people's desk to desk to see how things are going. That's changed a little bit. Now you actually have to do a telecheck, right? So you're video chatting with your stakeholders, you're video chatting with your team members. Everybody is collaborating, but they're doing it in a virtual way. And that's how people have had to really make this shift. I think, honestly, this is probably something that will stay with us, even after we're all vaccinated and ready to go back out in public and move around again.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I love your point about email. That, you know, email, a lot of people think we send an email, they've sorted a problem, but they've not. The problem isn't sorted until the problem's sorted. And there's something that I had sort of discovered in the sort of very early 2000s. I was deputy creative director of a big ad agency in London. And I've had this feeling that a lot of people were using email just to cover their backsides. It was this political thing that if I CC people in and BCC the right people in, I'm showing that I am doing the effort, I'm doing my thing. But it wasn't necessarily solving problems. And I did this thing within the company that we did no email Thursdays. So on Thursdays, you weren't allowed to send an internal email. You had to get up and you had to actually go and speak to people. And there was this beautiful serendipitous thing that would happen is that people would go to then talk face to face to someone to try and sort out a problem. And then they'd go, oh, while I'm here. And it was those magical bits. It was that, oh, while we're here, where the bits where incredible ideas happened and the magic happened. It was the unexpected stuff. And you just don't get that from email. And do you find the same with doing like project management stuff and having the morning stand-ups and these kind of things?
Absolutely. The stand-up is the gateway to collaboration for the whole day. So I always try to ask teams to do their stand-up first thing in the morning. I ask them to do that because it really sets the tone for who you're talking to all day. What team are you on? What are your goals? What are your objectives? Where are you trying to get today? And it helps you remember that this peer group, this team, is really who you're accountable to. These are the people that want to know how you're doing. They want to know if you're stuck. They want to help you. So if you can start your day with that stand-up, that immediate collaboration, that's the best way to start any day. And honestly, in terms of project management, the root to any successful project is communication. So if you start your day with communication, you will set the pace for the whole day to keep communicating all the way through. To your point, you'll resolve those problems, and you will probably resolve problems that weren't even top of mind when you started your morning. So it's fantastic, that serendipity that can come together when you're just chatting with someone.
Yeah. Is my sound going funny? I'm hearing some strange feedback here. Maybe there we go. Great. One of the things that I sort of found as having worked in the creative industries and looking at using agile methodologies within that, there tended to be a fear amongst people within the creative industries that having too much of a structure would be stifling to creative ideas, and that when you've got a defined process, that it's something that is limiting to innovative and creative thought rather than something that's enabling. Can that sometimes be the case? And if so, what can people do to deal with that?
So I would agree with you that I feel like you have to have some level of structure in order to free up your creative mind. And honestly, with Agile teams, we're trying to encourage them to creatively solve their own problems. They're self-organizing. They're managing the work themselves. What we're trying to do with Agile and with project management is to create a framework where we all know where we're going. We all understand roughly how we're going to get there. And then it frees space for the team to really creatively solve the problems that they're facing, that no one's ever faced before. That's the beauty of knowledge work, right? When you run into a problem, it's likely that no one in your organization has ever had that specific problem before, because each project is unique to the time, the space, and the team. So fantastic. There's plenty of room within the framework to get creative and solve in new ways, innovative ways. It's the only way forward.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things that I've spotted with the process is, obviously when we're doing something, as you're saying, if you're doing something that hasn't been done before, you encounter problems that you've not encountered before and that other people haven't encountered before. And I think one of the important things for people who are leading this is to have the flexibility and the ability to pivot and adapt, rather than there have been times where I've worked with people who have been too regimented and found it hard to let go of something that might have been defined earlier on, when actually, as you go through the process, you realize that that's maybe something we need to reconsider. And I think attitude is such an important thing. When a lot of people look at Scrum and Agile as a process-driven thing, but it's very much a human thing. So what's the characteristics that good Scrum Masters have on a personal basis?
So I think that's a great point. Agile, you can do Agile as a set of processes, but we talk a lot as people doing Agile, what it means to be Agile. And to your point, Agile is really a mindset. It's about being flexible. It's about acknowledging at the beginning, we think we're going to do it this way, but who knows what tomorrow's going to bring. So we'll adapt and we'll change. So I think some of the key skills are flexibility, adaptability, the ability to be curious about every possibility that's out there. It doesn't mean we ignore risks. It doesn't mean we ignore process, and it doesn't mean we ignore documentation. What it does mean is that we are open and embracing to anything that could show up in our project, having the confidence to know that we are free to flexibly adapt to anything that comes up. We can creatively solve for anything. And we also have the leadership and management support to get help when we need it. So I think being humble enough to be curious, being flexible enough to adapt, and then just be excited to explore, because you just don't know what's around the corner.
Yeah, well, there you go. Curiosity. That's something we both teach. That's lovely. So you fantastic viewers here. So hi, Greg in Calgary. Haven't seen you since yesterday. That's been lovely. Sheba from Sharjah. My goodness, we've got Stefano in Italy, Rahid from Morocco, Rojima in Cape Town.
This is so how exciting!
Beautifully international here. I love this. Now, all of the lovely people in the comments, what questions have you got about Agile project management, Scrum? What are the issues that maybe you found, or the things that might have been just niggling in the back of your mind? Please let us know in the comments what you want to know. And in the meantime, Kelley, what are the problems, do you think? What are the mistakes, the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to Scrum in particular?
Sure.
Because there's some people, I guess, try to adapt it and maybe sort of mix it up with different Agile methodologies like Waterfall, and it might create a bit of confusion. What do you think are the biggest mistakes that people make, particularly when it comes to Scrum?
Sure. I think probably the biggest mistake that I see most commonly everywhere is that teams who are coming from a waterfall environment, they put a Scrum wrapper around it and say, we're going to measure things after 2 weeks, and we're going to see how we're doing. But in the middle of that 2 weeks, what they're actually doing is waterfalling within the sprint, where the developers will have the work for the first 3 days of the 10, and then the testers will have it for the next 5 days of the 10. And then the last 2 days will be bug fixes, and we'll try to cram a fix in and get it out the door. That's waterfalling in your Scrum, right? In your Scrum framework. It's so common. It happens all the time, especially with teams that are new. So what I like to tell teams as they're getting started is, okay, one day at a time. What you're going to do today is you're going to try pair programming. You're going to take the story. You're going to make sure all the tasks are there. You're going to pair program. You're going to pair program, and you're going to have that tested while you're pair programming the next segment, right? So we're just trying to get a flow built so that within the 2 weeks, every single day is its own little mini Scrum, right? Because you've got all the players acting and tasking at the same time.
Great. And in fact, we've got a question here from Sheba Hasnain, who's asking, how are Agile and Scrum different? And what are the recommended courses, Dave Birss? Well, Sheba, the recommended course is Cert Prep Scrum Master by Kelley O'Connell. And Kelley's actually got a whole load of courses.
I do.
Some of them going from sort of lighter, more general Agile through to the sort of hardcore Scrum stuff. So, Kelley, you're the expert on this.
Yeah.
What is the difference between Scrum and Agile? And I know that we start getting into Venn diagram
We do, and I love those. The slightly scientific part of my brain totally loves a good Venn diagram. And honestly, I'd love to say that the difference between Agile and Scrum is that Scrum is a subset within Agile. So if we think about Agile as a family, Agile includes Scrum, XP, Kanban, DSDM, all kinds of different frameworks and families of practices, and Scrum is just one of them. Now, Scrum is the most popular. Most, I think, of the companies practicing Agile in the latest survey, like 56% are practicing Scrum. Then another 25% are practicing Kanban. And then the rest are practicing kind of a mishmash of other things. But Scrum is within the Agile family, and Agile is the overarching group of anything you can do that's different from Waterfall, basically.
Yeah. So, your career, you have had a journey where you have, first of all, been a practitioner,
Yes.
project management and learning about Agile. And then you moved into training people as well as doing it. And now you're a consultant and an educator.
Right.
Tell me about your journey in your career. Was there any point in that journey where there was an unexpected stutter and maybe you found yourself looking for work unexpectedly? I certainly have.
Definitely. Absolutely. I think rare is the person that has not experienced that. For me, I had lost my job at one point, and I was months and months without work and trying everything I could. And this was in my PMP days, my traditional waterfall days. And so I used that time to really make sure I knew the skills that I wanted to project in my interviews. I did a lot of refreshing and reviewing. I spent a lot of time on the internet, on websites, reading blogs, reading the Harvard Business Review of all things, right? Just to get management techniques, interviewing tips. At the time that I was looking for work, something as wonderful as LinkedIn didn't exist, LinkedIn Learning. So I didn't have that type of opportunity to learn in depth in a very consumable way. It was a lot of work. And I would say that as you keep charging forward, as you learn, as you're growing, you are making yourself far more marketable, and you will get to the point that you want to. It's sad, it's hard, it's frustrating. Do whatever you can to just keep going.
Yeah, and I guess before we go into, I've got a great question here from Scott, but before we go into that there's, with this whole approach of being a project manager and looking at these different ways of being able to manage with Agile, it's now across so many different industries.
That's right.
Are there some people who are maybe confining themselves to one industry when in fact the approach would actually open up opportunities in other industries for them?
Absolutely. I think that's the beauty of the Agile family of frameworks, is that while it started with software development, you're not restricted to that. I have actually seen Agile practices successfully implemented in construction, like physically building things. I've seen it in marketing. I've seen it in healthcare. I've seen it in daycares, believe it or not. So I think as you're out there searching, the skills are transferable, right? So make sure that you're highlighting them across industries. We see Agile in any industry. It isn't software development. It's not just insurance or financial services. It's everywhere. So be adventurous. Apply for things that aren't maybe in your sweet spot, but recognize that you have the skills, that you can take it and you can transform an existing role into something so much better than it was just listed as or advertised as. Everything's an opportunity.
Yeah, and maybe your perspective from a different industry actually gives you an advantage when you step into a new industry. Now, we've got a question here from Scott, as he's saying here, as you're saying, Agile originated in the software space. Scott's seeing it getting pushed into the manufacturing space. Is that a good idea? Because of course, project management, I guess, probably started in manufacturing before it went into software, and now the software learnings are going back into manufacturing. Are they suited for that?
It's a nice big circle, right? It's the circle of life, right? So Agile basically started out of manufacturing in lean practices that came out of Toyota. So what we're seeing is that some of the learnings that have been so the lean concepts were all about the physical world, right? It's how do we keep things fast? How do we keep the production line moving? In the software space, we're really about how do we handle change? On a manufacturing line, you don't have as much change, but in a software world, you've got change every day. Requirements change, the code changes, everything changes every day. Translating that back into a manufacturing world is actually a very good thing because it introduces opportunity for innovation, right? Understanding that you're taking this whole value stream, the whole system, and taking the system view that we've applied to IT departments and applying it now back to manufacturing is a whole new way of looking at manufacturing and Agile. So where it started is now going to be totally different through this different lens. We've grown so much based on what we learned in knowledge work that we can apply it to any manufacturing setting.
Yeah, it's when I work with innovation, and I'm working with companies on working out what is our innovation cycle going to be. It's the speed of that cycle is different according to the industry. So from car manufacturer, at one end where maybe your innovation cycle is actually like 3 years or something, then you've got pretty much a daily innovation cycle with a lot of software stuff. And it's amazing how it can be, you can fit it to each industry. It's just the speed of that circle.
Right. Absolutely. That's a great way to put it, the speed of the circle.
Yeah. So there's my friend Alan. Alan and I played in bands together when we were in our 20s. And hello, Alan. Oh, delighted you're here. So he's got a question for Kelley. Do you find that stakeholders and product owners require documentation after the fact? So the business says it's agile, but can't actually do without the documented accountability. I don't entirely understand that side of things, but if you understand Alan's question.
I do. Hello, Alan. Thank you for the question. Most of the time, no. What we try to do as Scrum Masters and coaches with our product owners and Scrum Masters is ask them during planning, as they're writing their acceptance criteria, how are they going to test this? How are they going to know it's done? If documentation is part of it, it goes in there or it becomes a new story, right? So they don't get to say, oh, by the way, I want you to add this in. Sure, you can have it, but it becomes a new story. And then product owner, you have to prioritize it against everything else. If it's part of your acceptance criteria for the story, great, write it in there. If it's not, then the team isn't responsible for doing it.
Brilliant. Now, you're becoming a Scrum doctor here. We've got some great questions coming in. So, welcome to Kelly's surgery. Just pop your clothes in the chair. She'll be with you shortly. Put on the paper napkin. So here's a question from Rojima, is saying, sometimes you have a sub-team using Agile or Scrum methodology, like a development team, within a project run by traditional project management methods. How do you consolidate that process to work better when the timelines don't always align? Oh my goodness, that's like using two different diameters of pipe and trying to get them to
connect. Absolutely is. So when you are facing a situation where you've got a sub-team and your sub-team is Agile, that's actually great for you within a waterfall framework, because 90% of the time, your Scrum sub-team is going to be successful at hitting the timeline they tell you they're going to hit. So part one, that's beneficial. Part two, you're really going to struggle with reporting, because the way you report waterfall project status is completely different than the way you report a Scrum project status, where you are, how it all fits into the timeline. So what you'll really have to do is focus on getting those stories fleshed out just enough to the Scrum team for them to size, estimate, and build into a release plan so that you can then take their release plan and build your waterfall framework around it. So it's less than ideal, but it'll get you where you want to go, and it will make your reporting a little bit easier, because if you start with what the Agile team is doing and what they're estimating, you're going to be more successful than trying to force them into a framework from a waterfall perspective. As opposed to saying to them, hey, we got to have this by June 1st, you're going to say, hey, here's the work, give us your estimate, and then we'll build the rest of the traditional schedule around that. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit like if you've got the two different diameters of pipe,
Yes.
what you need is an extra part that goes in the middle that translates this bit to this bit, this bit to this bit. And it just creates that extra little bit of work, or that extra role, I suppose, whether that's a full-time role for somebody to be the translator, or whether that is just part of other people's roles in a part-time.
For sure, and there's actually a LinkedIn Learning course on the topic. It's called Blending Project Management Methods.
Brilliant.
And it will help you solve this specific problem, including how to change the metrics, right? How do you merge the metrics into a unified dialogue for leaders to understand?
Yeah. Great. This is great. The questions are coming in here. I'm loving this. So Pamela is saying that, is there any best project management method for non-profits?
Pamela, hello. I think all project management methods will work. I think the size of your organization and the structure of your organization really makes a difference. If you are a small firm and you're doing all the work in-house, but you have a team that has just flow, anybody can do anything, then I would recommend a Kanban. So if you have discrete work items for folks to just grab and do, then I would recommend a Kanban framework. If you actually are doing bigger projects, you can run any form of Scrum. You could even run XP, which is even lighter weight than Scrum. So I would get started with probably a Kanban framework. And if that isn't giving you enough structure, I would then switch over to probably a Scrum framework to see how that's going. And then you can tweak the process a little bit as you go along.
Fantastic. Now, you've also... you in your courses you teach Kanban as well. So is there one of your LinkedIn Learning courses that you would recommend as an introduction to that?
So for Kanban, I would say I would also go to the Blending Project Management Methods. I go through Kanban a bit in there, and then I've got my little list here. I would also look at the Software PM Foundations, Software Project Management Foundations. It goes over in a lot of detail when to use Scrum, when to use Kanban, what the focus is, how it's a little different. And then I also touch on something called Scrumban, which is even better, right? Because why not combine Scrum and Kanban together? Really, it's just Kanban with a Scrum wrapper where you're measuring every couple of weeks and you're planning. So I would definitely take a look at the Software Project Management Foundations course. Yeah,
that's certainly a better sort of mashup than Kanban, which just
for sure
would have been quite so good. So we've got a question here from LinkedIn user. I don't know if that's their actual name or if they changed their name to it. Maybe they got it tattooed on their arm there. I don't know. So there's always critics when you're using Agile. How do you deal with the critics? I mean, I guess punch them straight in the face is one option, but it's not necessarily one we're going to recommend here.
You know, the Human Resources Department says no punching.
I'm Scottish, so you know.
So one of my favorite techniques, I have worked with a lot of teams, and particularly I find very experienced developers are very frustrated because they're like, well, I don't even know what to build. I don't have my spec. I don't know exactly what you want, and I don't have the exact timeline. And so one of my favorite techniques for the skeptics is to say, okay, what has been so wonderful for you about the waterfall process? Is it because you knew exactly when you were getting something? Is it because you love doing all that documentation? Is it because you love 100-page long project plans? Help me understand what you missed, because I will create that in Agile for you if you'd like. But I really do like to understand, all kidding aside, I do like to understand what they miss, how can Agile meet that need, and sort of get them off the fence. And I also like to share with them everything's an experiment. Give us 3 sprints or 4 sprints, experiment with us on the team for 4 sprints. If you don't like it, we'll reassign you somewhere else, as long as you'll do a knowledge transfer to whoever replaces you.
Yep, that's a great approach. And I've got one last question here from Sheba. She's saying, I have Prince and CPMA. What's the best suggestion for me? I've got some Prince albums. I don't have any CPMA. Is that electronic dance music? I'm not sure. So with this, I guess what she was saying is, what would be the next step if she's got these qualifications?
Sure. So these are great qualifications. Prince is very similar to a PMP. I will never disparage either Prince or the PMP. There are so many fantastic tools that you learn from those. I believe that I've been a very successful Agile Scrum Master and coach because I have that background. I think for you, the next step would be to get either a certified Scrum Master, which is the CSM, or Scrum.org offers the PSM, which is Professional Scrum Master. They're basically the same, so don't worry about that. One or the other would be a great next step. From there, you can then make decisions on, do you want to advance into a product ownership? Do you want to continue with Scrum, mastering? Where do you want to go from there? So I think it's just a great entry point for what you've already done. And congratulations on the accomplishments you've already got. Yeah,
it's fantastic. So here we go. We've done that. So would you believe it? We've been on for over half an hour, and
wow.
I just love it. It's been so active today. Such fantastic questions. And I've created a little, if I can find it here, I've created a little thing here so that people can find our courses. So just quick bit.ly links. So I guess I like to round off with just a question about people who are maybe, they're curious at the moment about this as an opportunity. They've maybe not been hands-on or totally involved with Agile or Scrum, but they're curious about this as something to augment their career.
Absolutely.
For you, what would your advice be for the first place to start to get on the rung of becoming an Agile ninja?
I would start, honestly, with the Agile Manifesto and values. So I would go to agilemanifesto.org. From there, I would jump over into LinkedIn Learning and take some very entry-level short courses, things like what is Scrum, Agile in the workplace, things like that, just to get your head around what it is. It'll help you separate the buzzwords from the fact. What's real behind what you're hearing and what isn't. Definitely start with the manifesto. It all starts with the mindset.
Yeah. And so if people want to get hold of you, obviously one place they can get hold of you, here's your website here.
Absolutely.
leadingadvantageinc.com.
Yes.
Where else can they get a hold of you and find out more about what you're up to?
Find me on LinkedIn. I'm out there every day. So I'd love to hear from you.
Wonderful. Kelley, that's been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time and for being our Agile doctor here today. Hopefully you've solved a few problems as well as being able to explain a little bit more about Agile and Scrum. Please, if you've not done Kelley's course, do the course. It is available for free until the end of the month. So you've got, 3 or 4 days? 3 days, because we don't have any months with 32 in them, I believe. So go and check out the course. You've got 3 days to do it. Highly recommend it. And thank you all for watching, for joining, for being so active in the comments. I hope to be back at some point. This was just a 3-episode series, and this is the 3rd of those shows. And I want to be back soon. If you want more of these kind of shows, please copy LinkedIn Learning into a comment and just say, we want more Dave.
We all want more Dave.
Yay! Fantastic. So thank you all so much for watching. Thank you, Kelley. Hang around. I want to chat to you once the show ends. thank you all so much for those who are saying thank you in the comments. I love you very much. It's time for me to end the broadcast and say thank you, and I hope to see you soon.